Wow. We're just so excited on today. We have Jamila in the studio on today. We're just excited to have her here on today as we get going in our marriage coach. Jamila, welcome to the studio.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here in the flesh and house.
Hello, and welcome to episode number 22 of the Marriage Coach Podcast, where we are here to help you take your relationship from surviving to thriving.
Today on the Marriage Coach Podcast, we will be discussing unwrapping the gift of singleness, dealing with anger.
So Jamila, you and I were talking, and one of the things we thought about, actually we started talking about it a little bit when we did the ABCs of singleness. We talked about, singles embracing their singleness as a gift. And so for this segment today, as we get closer to the holiday season, we wanted to dive a little deeper into some of the feelings or emotions that a single person may endure as a single. And one of the emotions that we wanted to deal with was anger. So tell us a little bit about that.
And it's one of those things to where people may not want to acknowledge it, but a lot of singles have felt that, especially if you've been waiting for a considerable amount of time,
Mhm.
is that anger from why am I still single? Or even to why I keep having this bad cycle of relationships or this cycle of bad relationships. Like, God, when you gonna send me my spuds and I
Mhm.
stop dating all these duds, you can get angry at the wait. You can get
Mhm.
angry at God. You can get angry because of the relationship. So I think that that's something that you don't really, that's really talked about a lot is the anger that comes sometimes creep up when you're single.
And why do you think that people don't often, so other than, the obvious that, when we talk about being upset with gods, some people may be like, oh my God, did you just really say that? But what are some other reasons that you think would keep someone from acknowledging that they are really angry about where they are to be able to express that emotion?
It can is a range of things that can come in. Like, it's I have this facade on, like everything is right in my life, and to be vulnerable and to show that anger, it takes away from that. My life is all together and everything else, but then nothing bothers me. I'm okay. I'm cool, calm, collect. So it could go a whole gamut of reasons of why someone may experience anger during their singleness. But it really comes to a point to where when you start acknowledging the different emotions that you feel, that if you have felt angry, that's one of the emotions you have to just fess up to and acknowledge if you really want to heal and go past that.
And when we first started talking about the topic, I thought about how oftentimes, we may have talked to singles or talked to someone that was single, and for some people, it may be more or less presented like, this just is what it is, and I'm good, and if God hasn't given me someone by now, or if it hasn't happened by now, then I'm just gonna be by myself. And I think is somewhat of a cover up, so that you don't have to acknowledge that you are angry. And that was one of the things that we talked about when you and I were talking. We talked about acknowledging that you have the emotion. And I think it's very important to acknowledge and the thing I like to think of this way, we can be honest with God. He already knows everything. And we definitely want to be honest with ourselves and acknowledge that we feel a certain way, because in your time of waiting, you may go through a range of emotions, because I think of it similar to the grief process, you have, that idea where you're angry, you're upset. Then you may have that time when you're in denial that denial that you're angry or upset. You're in denial that you're not happy with the way things are. And then you'll have more anger and being upset, especially one of the things that you touched on was finding yourself finding yourself continually in relationships that are failing, or finding yourself continually in relationships that are toxic. And I think that, first of all, acknowledging the way you feel about the fact, that you're still single, and that you are angry about it, or that you're upset about it, or that you feel some type of way, however you want to say it, acknowledging that, and then being able to, I always say, unpack it, because to me, when I say unpack it, what that means is, why do I feel this way? And what do I do about feeling this way? How do I'm honest about what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. Now, what do I do to move forward? What do I do to become better? So as we talk about that, once someone acknowledges that they are angry, once someone acknowledges that I am upset, I wanted to be married by now, or I've given my heart to multiple people and it did not work out. I've given my all in relationships and I feel like I've given myself so much and I've lost so much, or just never having a relationship that even came close to marriage. What would be the next step that they would do once they acknowledge? I acknowledge that this is how I feel. I'm really upset. God, whatever you believe, I'm feeling some type of way about the fact that I'm not married. What would be the next thing they can do what would be some things they can do to help begin to deal with that process?
And I think you said it best to unpack that. And when you really start unpacking it, you have to get to the root of it. And so that's really understanding what is anger.
Mm-hmm.
I view anger, and this may not be the textbook definition, but it's really just hurt that has been crusted over, that just have scabbed over in a sense. So it's
Mm-hmm.
undealt with hurt, and that can come in the form of disappointment, just a rejection. It can come in
Mm-hmm.
a lot of different things, and because you haven't dealt with it, it festers, and then now it expressed as anger.
Mm-hmm.
And so anger is one of those
Wow.
expressive emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to watch it. And I can be
Wow.
very
Wow. Wow.
transparent
Yes.
in that one time, because like I said previously, God has told me that I'm supposed to be married, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not making that up, because God, I was to that point to where I'm like, okay, God, if you meant for me to live this life as unmarried, I'm going to submit to you. And he's like, no, I have someone for you, but there's some things I need for you to do. So I'm like,
Oh
okay.
wow.
But even in knowing that,
Mm-hmm.
I have gone through stages of being upset and angry and disappointed that I'm still single. Because
Yeah.
I can recall this was probably like a couple of years ago. I was in the shower and I was praying for my husband. I'm like, yeah, Jesus bless him, all that stuff. I tell you, by the time I got dressed, got into bed, I said, now, Jesus, if you gonna want me to be married or not, just tell me. I'm like, and Jesus was like, well, weren't you
Yeah.
just praying for him? Didn't you
Right.
just
Right.
believe it? And
Right.
I was like, oh, Jesus, I'm acting very, very schizophrenic with
Right.
you. I'm
Right. Right.
sorry. But just that quick, I vacillated from being praying from, my husband
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
being upset with God. Like, why,
Why it
I'm,
hasn't happened already?
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was a wake up call for me. Like, oh, chick, you need to check yourself. Like,
Wow.
you're
Wow.
vacillating on two
Wow.
different opinions, and that's not cool. So, and I think sometimes it can be just that subtle to where you're believing, you're standing, you're
Mm.
saying it with your mouth, you're doing your actions, so you look the part. But then when it comes down to that core, like literally, it was like minutes later, and I was had attitude. But that's what I was like, God, thank you for your patience, because clearly I need some patience and some grace, because I got upset and got attitude just that quickly. So I think it's getting to the root of it, because it's like, well, why am I waiting? So now I've had the wonderful opportunity of engaging in conversations with different singles.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we start to unpack that, is why are you in such a rush? Why are you?
Mm.
Because the question then becomes, so why are you still single? And it's usually is there's something that you still need to do. There's some area you need to develop in. And the beauty of that is that the more that you can develop as an unmarried person,
Mm-hmm.
that's less work that you have to do.
Once you're married.
That's right.
Exactly. And the reason why I was able to finish that is because when you were talking, I could just, the wheels were just turning and I was thinking, I was like, oh my God, this is where we get the label for the black bitter woman, or we get the label for the single woman that, or they just hate men, or, she's a feminist or whatever. And it's not seen as what it really is, because you are upset and you're feeling some type of way because of the toxic relationships that you've been in, or because of the relationships that have failed, or because you're at a point in time in your life where you like, I don't want to be by myself, I want to be with someone. But to think of it as that God is still working on me, or it's an opportunity for me to work on me, it's an opportunity for me to put an effort in being a better version of myself. Because I think oftentimes, going back to the even acknowledging it, some people haven't acknowledged that they're upset or that they're angry. So that comes out in a multitude of ways. It comes out in lots of facets, and people think, oh, she just got a bad attitude. Oh, she just, oh my gosh, she mean. Oh my gosh, she, oh Lord, whatever. And that's where it comes from. It comes from not dealing with that. And I think what you just said about addressing it, and we talked about unpacking it and seeing, why do I feel this way, or what is it, regardless of what area in life you find yourself in. I believe when God has you planted in a situation, in a circumstance, and if you stay there for a period of time, it's because he has something that he wants you to see there. It's because he's working there. Whether he's working on you or he's working on what's coming for you, he's preparing the situation. Cedric was saying, even in the sermon when he preached on Sunday, he was saying, some of us are praying for a spouse, but you're not making yourself spouse ready. And that's the thing that, sometimes we glaze over, because, we don't want to necessarily hear those things. But if I want to be a wife, am I preparing myself to be a wife? If I want to be a husband, am I, I can't want to be a husband, but I'm still living in my home. My mama playing video games. I don't have a job or none of that. I can't want to be a wife and I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to take care of finances. I don't know how to pay bills. I spend bill money to get my hair done. All of these things is time for us to unpack and work on. And you find yourself angry because it hasn't happened yet, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. It just means that you have more time. And that's why we called it Unwrapping the Gift of Singleness, because I believe when you begin to see it as a gift, a gift of time, a gift of, we were talking about something completely different before we started recording. And I said, I wasn't single long enough. I got married straight out of high school. So I wasn't single long enough to unwrap the gift of singleness, because I got married at a young age and early. But for those who find themselves 20, 30, 40, whatever age you are, and you're still single, or you find yourself newly single, the time that you have is such a gift to deal with how you feel. Whether if you're in the stage of anger, which is what we're dealing with today, how did I get here? Why am I feeling this way? Yeah. Then as you unpack that and you begin to deal with, why am I feeling this way? What is God trying to teach me? What is he showing me? What is he plucking out of me? Because you definitely don't want Boaz to come and you run him off because you still not ready. And then you look back years later and you realize he really could have been the one, but I wasn't ready. Because some people find themselves in that state too. And so now you're even angry about something else because you messed up the one that could have been the one. And you don't want to do that, because God forbid, and you would not want to mess up the blessing that could change your life. So I think what you just said about dealing with yourself and dealing with the root cause of why you feel the way you feel, where you are, why you're there. You said that you were praying for your husband. So if God has given you, it don't matter if you've been single for 40 years. If he said it, he's gonna make it good.
That's it.
If you get married 6 days before you die, he's gonna make it good.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So Cedric, can you talk a little bit more of when you're in counseling, because one of the things I truly believe is that when you don't deal with your emotions, especially as an unmarried person,
Yeah.
you don't drop that at the altar. It goes with
Mm.
you into your
Oh
marriage.
Right.
yes.
So, how do you counsel when it comes to anger issues?
First thing you have to do, you really have to just kind of deal with the root of the situation. Is really dealing with yourself, because it's kind of hard, bring it's because everyone want a good husband, everyone want a good wife, but you can't ask for something if you're not willing to be that. I mean, you have to be the person you want to see. I mean, if you're talking about being equally compared to somebody, I mean, you have to make yourself that person. So it's like in the gift of singleness, that's the time, not to get upset, not to get caught up in the fact that, it's gonna be a challenging thing. It's gonna be something that you're going back and forward with emotionally. But the whole point is to be aware. I mean, because emotions are real. I mean, being feeling lonely is real. I mean, these are real feelings. I mean, but really stepping back and really, when you really, upset, angry, feeling some kind of way, changing that energy to the fact of, okay, I'm still getting ready. Okay, I'm still working on me. Okay, he's coming or she's coming. She's on the way. He's on his way. But it's still some things that I need to work out within myself.
And I think it's so healthy, and it's just healthy for any relationship, whether it's a romantic or a sibling or a parental, to where, I have a little pet peeve when people say I feel some type of way. What way is that?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But it's being able to express those emotions. And I think so many times in relationships, we let emotions just go without expressing them. We can't give voice to those emotions. And one of the things that I've come to realize is that, when we have emotions, when we bury our feelings, they do not die. They come back as
Yes.
inappropriate. So
Behavior.
feelings buried alive don't die. They come back as inappropriate behavior.
Yes.
Yes,
And so
yes,
when
Yes.
we
yes.
look into our relationships,
Wow.
we're seeing a lot of inappropriate behavior, but the fuel that's driving them are unexpressed buried feelings. And so I
Yes.
think the broader message is we have to deal with the emotions. And emotions are not bad,
Mm-mm.
not
They're
whatsoever.
It's
indicators.
That's it.
Hmm.
indicators. Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
indicators.
Because even in marriage, you're going to have
You're
emotions,
gonna have
right?
indicators.
Absolutely.
Yes,
That's
even
right.
married, single, whatever. As a human being, and we talk about this at church all the time. I believe it's important for us to know that our emotions are indicators. If you're sad, it's an indicator that something is going on. If you're angry, it's an indicator that something. It's like pay attention, pay attention. When your gas light comes on in your car, your check engine light comes on. What do?
Yeah.
You pay attention. I don't even know what half the lights on the dashboard are about, but when a light comes on, I'm like, babe, this light is on, and it look like this, look like that. So that's just think of your emotions in the same way. Pay attention to your emotions. And one thing we don't want to do, and I think that being a pastor's wife and a pastor, we're on here, and we know that you're a Christian as well, Jamila, and being Christians, we cannot, lovers of Christ, we cannot teach people to pretend
That's right.
like these things don't exist. Oh, you need to go pray. No, this person is hurting. They're upset. Why are they upset? Listen, I heard Pastor Rick Warren say something, and that has stuck with me for years. He said, God created you, and God can handle every one of your emotions.
Yeah.
It's nothing that you feel that's going to surprise him. Like, oh, what is that? I can't believe she feeling that way. He already knows. The real thing is that majority of the time, God wants us to acknowledge it. Because when we acknowledge that I have a problem, when we acknowledge that I'm angry, I'm upset, my single sisters, I'm upset that I'm 30, 40, 45, whatever age, and I'm still single. I'm upset that, I live this life for God and it hasn't worked out for me yet. Boaz hasn't showed up for me. He didn't cover me with the tail of his cloth, whatever. You, if you feel that way, you're acknowledging that, you're being real about that. And once you do that, it's the same thing they do in drug and alcohol programs.
That's it.
Once it comes to the surface, now it's not hankering you down. Now it's not holding you down. Now it's, what do I do with it? I'm angry. This is the truth. What do I do with it?
What do you
Cedric,
do?
yeah,
What do you do?
Cedric, you just said that these emotions may come and go. So you may have a time when you like, okay, I know that God is shaping me. You know, this is my time to become better. This is me working on me. I'm working on myself as an individual, working on how I communicate, working on how I control my finances, working on self-control, working on expressing my anger instead of holding it in or doing things that I shouldn't be doing. You're working on you. But while you're doing that, you could turn around the next day and be like, oh God, I can't believe it ain't happened for me yet, or I'm upset.
Mhm.
But and that's okay because you're a human and you're working
That's
through it. But you want to continue to use the tools that you have to work through it. And so I was gonna ask you this question when you were talking, when she asked the question about counseling. If someone was to say in counseling, if they said the words like, I'm angry with God.
Letting the person know it's okay. It's okay. It's okay to feel the way you feel. In order for you to understand where you are, that emotion is your indicator. So it's like you can't condemn somebody for the indicator light coming on. It's like, okay, so now if you're feeling this, why are you feeling this? Because if it's no emotions, you can't attach a why to it. That's why God gave us emotions. I mean, even the Bible say, be angry, but sin not. It's like you're going to have the emotion, but it's what you do with the emotion. So it's like, be angry, but sin not. Or I can add to it, be lonely, but sin not. It's just different things that we have to be aware of. I mean, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Listen to me. It is okay. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel condemned by the way you feel. You feel that way for a reason. The thing you need to do, instead of feeling guilty about it, find out why. So that's one thing I would do. It'd be like, okay, you're feeling that way. So the next step is why. Why are you feeling like this? Why are you feeling like this? And really walking down the street, even dealing with things that people don't like to deal with. Because the truth of the matter is, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, sometimes we don't really want to deal with the truth. That's why a lot of times we can't get rid of things. That's why sometimes we still have things stuffed in the closet because we never dealt with it because of the way it feel when we're about to go in the closet. As soon as we're about to open the closet up, we feel a certain way. And the next thing you know, you close that closet, you're like, hey, I'm gonna deal with this tomorrow. And tomorrow is now 50 years later, and you still suffering from the same issue. So I mean, those are two of the things I would do. I would let them know it's okay. And then we would try to get into to the root cause of it. Like, why is this happening?
And we have to change what we say about feelings because I've encountered people like, I don't have any feelings. Usually that's my male voice because usually it's the males who say that. Not male bashing. But one of the things I have to point out that if you have no feelings, we call those people psychopaths.
Yeah,
Like we were
absolutely.
designed to have feelings. So it's like shifting how we are framing feelings, that it's not bad that I'm feeling that. But one of the things that I've had to do, especially when it comes to grief, is learning to sit in that. And sometimes that is so uncomfortable. It's like once you acknowledge it and now you have to sit in it and process it. And it may not be a quick process, but once if you sit in it and you get comfortable with the uncomfortableness, then you can see some things really start to take shape and come from that.
Yeah.
But that's something that I've seen in my own self, that sometimes it's tough to sit in that, like whatever the emotion may be. If it's anger, to sit in that, and like you said, but sit in it and not do anything destructive.
You say that because here's the thing. I mean, even and it do happen. I mean, a lot of us males, we'll say that. We'll say we not, I don't have feelings or I'm not that emotional. The gathering at the Super Bowl party, and your favorite team scores the touchdown. Or if your favorite team get interception on, I mean, you're gonna show some type of emotion. You're gonna have some type of feeling, with that. So we can't we can't buy that fact that I don't have any feelings or I'm not emotional. Yes, you are. Maybe what you're dealing with right now, you're not that emotional about that, but you're emotional about something.
I've been binge watching lately. Family or Fiance is a reality show.
That is the show. That's the show with
Yeah.
the girl and the guy on. Yes,
Oh,
the
that's it. Yeah, yeah,
atheist.
yeah.
The
I
guy
can't
that was
remember
the
Oh,
his name.
atheist. Yes,
Yeah.
that's
yes.
Family or
I hadn't
Fiance.
watched that
That's it.
episode yet, but that's probably the next one that's on my playlist. But I was really shocked because I guess I wasn't thinking, I was like, oh, it's a reality TV show. But I have really gotten a lot from that. But this last episode that I watched, it was a couple, an engaged couple on there. And one of her complaints was that he wouldn't show his emotions. So they sent him to improv, and she was mad. It was so funny because her whole body language was mad because in the improv, it just came to life, and he was the best one there. But she was like, "Well, why you don't do that?" But so it goes back to what you were saying. You do have emotions, but he just needed the context for it to come out, and it was
Yeah.
like, wow.
Yeah.
But I was cracking up because she was like hot, like you do have emotions, and it was true. He did have emotions, and they came out in improv.
Yeah.
So when we talking about the acknowledging of the emotion or acknowledging that you're angry, what you're lonely, whatever. Well, we're talking about anger tonight. So you're acknowledging that you're angry. Do you think that um, thinking about the example you just gave us about the couple, do you think that maybe for some people it may be because they encountered the first person they encountered and tried to express that feeling did the exact opposite of what you two just said we
Yeah.
should do. Maybe so listen up to those that are married, family members, friends, even if you're a single friend, be careful of how you respond when someone is being emotionally naked with you. That's something that we've been talking about on the Marriage Coach podcast, and we will definitely be doing an episode about that. But when a person is trying to be emotionally naked, is meaning that they're trying to be open and honest with you. They're laying it all on the table. And I think when you were talking, I think the first thing came to my mind is did she create a safe
That's
space
right.
for him to express those
Yeah.
emotions? Because we talk about that on the Marriage Coach podcast. We know that in a relationship, it doesn't matter if it's mother, father, son, a parent relationship, a sibling relationship. The person in relationship with you has to feel that they are safe
Safe
to
space. Yeah.
express
Yeah.
what they're feeling without feeling like they're going to be condemned or they're going to be downgraded, they're going to be blown off, they're going to be ignored, they're going to be made fun of, or whatever it may be. They have to know that they can lay it all out on the table, that you're going to listen and that you're going to listen with an open mind and an open heart. And the next thing would be to help them to be able to start going to the root of why they feel that way. And
Yeah.
and sometimes for some of us as the person in relationship with someone, and I don't mean romantic because we're talking about our singles today, but you're the sister and your sister is single, or you're the brother and your sister is single, or you're the cousin, or whoever you are, or you're the married friend, whoever you are, you're allowing them to be naked with you emotionally. And then if the conversation goes there, then you want to lead them to why and help them
Mhm.
get to the root of it.
Yes.
But if they just want to get it out at that time, you allow them to do that too. We don't want to go immediately into trying to coach or counsel someone if they're not open to that yet. Because sometimes you said sit in it. Sometimes you have to sit in it. And then I don't mean just wallow there, but
Mhm.
sometimes you have to sit there like, this is what I'm feeling. And as you begin to process it, and I know that because as a woman, I've had things, emotions that I've had for whatever reason. And even if it has been angry, then I ask myself, why am I angry? And that's as a human being, period. Why am I angry? And I may tell Cedric as my husband, like, I didn't like this. This made me upset. And he's a pastor. He'll say, why? Why did that make you upset? And I just be like, don't ask me why it made me upset. Just let me be mad right now. So, sometimes you do have to let them be mad right now and let them work through it. But you ultimately want to get them to do what he does with me. And you want them to get to the root cause of it because what we want to do, especially with things like anger, those are things that take root in us. And we talked about, I said about, that's where sometimes the expression, oh, she bitter, oh, she just a hateful old so and so. That's where that comes from, because the truth of the matter is what you said, emotions undealt with leads, buried and undealt with, leads to expressed bad behavior. When you wonder why a person always has an attitude, can't get along with everyone, there's something there. They may not even be fully aware of it, but there's something there. And that is a fact. If you pay attention to people, that's what happens. If you listen long enough, you'll see there's some hurt there. There's some pain there. For women that say, oh, all men are dogs, men that say all women, they crazy. I'm not dating this type of woman no more because they all crazy. I'm not dating this race anymore because they all crazy. That's something there. There's something buried there that led to that. And if we don't deal with it, then it leads to this expressed bad behavior, whether it's nasty attitude, nasty disposition, or, even, being promiscuous and all of these things because of the whatever is lying under the surface.
Yeah. And one of the things that I would say too is taking the ownership for the spaces around me, because for the longest time I would try to create safe spaces with unsafe people.
Mm,
And that was just detrimental to my mental and emotional health.
wow.
And
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
wisdom and the maturity that I've gained over these lived experiences is, if I'm only going to be totally vulnerable with someone who I know is a safe space. So I'm taking the responsibility of, I have to do a litmus test. I have to check you out to see if I'm bearing my soul, you
Mm-hmm.
know, are you going to be safe with me, or are you going to stop, kick me while I'm down?
Mm-hmm.
So because I mean, I know some dismissive people who, for whatever reason, and I don't think people are even aware of
Mm-hmm.
if they're
True,
being
true, true.
dismissive or critical. But when you're being that, and it is when you're in your most vulnerable state and somebody does that to you, then we're setting up that pattern for that, so I'm not going to share again because, like you said, last time I shared, XYZ happened. They didn't,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel safe. So, but I think part of that is claiming that responsibility of, you just can't share with everybody. That's just the
Mm-hmm.
honest to God truth,
It's
is that
true.
you can't share with everybody, and that you have to, it's like you have to trust that person with your emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and trust that person to where they're not going to do ill with you while you're sitting here vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep, yep, yep.
And so I think, when you get to that point to where you're like, okay, I understand the root of why I'm doing this, or why, or this is the feeling, or these are the experiences behind that feeling, is
Mm.
trusting the process. And when we say trusting the process, is that if you put in the work, if you sit in it, if you unpack, if, for me, is seeking counseling. I love my counselor.
Mm-hmm.
She knows me. I've been seeing her for a couple of years. She knows me. So there are certain things, she knows some of my triggers. And so she'll ask me, she's like, well, how was that? And it's goes back to what I just said. That's one of the spaces to where I can be totally, how we used to say growing up, butt booty naked with my emotions,
Yes, yes.
is one of those safe spaces. And I value that space because I know that's a guaranteed space to where I can be vulnerable with my emotions and not be dismissed, and I can process it. But it's trusting that process, that if you engage in the things that we've talked about, that there is another side of this. This is okay. I can move forward. I can grow. I can heal, or whatever the outcome may be.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I think as you're trusting the process and going through it, believing that you're going to come out on the other side better, you have to remember that you want to get better in order for your life to get better.
Right.
Because if you the truth is weak and we can't ignore this. If you don't get better, you're not gonna get better. If you stay the same, if you're angry and you never get to the root of why you're angry, and you never go through the process of working through that anger, like you said, the counselor will ask you, how did that go for you? How did that? You have to work through it because she knows this is the thing. And so I guess Cedric would be my counselor, because when he does that and I begin to walk through it, I'm like, you know what? This is why I felt that way about. Oh, now I see why. So when you begin to do that and you're going through the process and you're trusting that this is working for me and is
Yeah.
working on me, then you
Mm.
always come out on the other end or the other side better than you were when you went in. So I still don't like what happened, or
Mhm.
I'm still not happy with the fact that I'm still single, or I'm still not happy with the fact of, for those that are single because of a relationship ending or whatever, I'm not happy with how the relationship ended. The hurt is real, the pain is real, the frustration is real, the loneliness is real. But I do know that I won't be here always. I do know that this is not the end of me. I do know that as I'm working on me, if I desire to be married again, if I desire to be married for the first time, and I'm trusting and believing God that that's what He has for me, that person is on the other side and they're working on themselves. And when we come together, we'll be just working on the two of us, meshing those two things together. And I think Cedric told us this on Sunday as well about the process. And so I just feel like this conversation right here, right now, is very much God ordained. And it's for us to be able to help our brothers and sisters, our listeners, to understand that in life, everything is everything, every situation, every circumstance, everything that we're dealing with is a process. It's a part of our process. That's what I want to say. It's a part of our process. And if we skip any part of it, something is going to be off kilter. Something is going to be off balance. You said about, sitting in it. We talked about unpacking it. If I just sit in it but never unpack it, I might stay there too long. I might end up being there forever. So you have to do each part of the process to get through it, to be able to know this is where I was, this is how I got there, this is what happened. But this thing also made me better. This thing also taught me something. This thing also helped me to see something in me
Yeah.
that I needed to work on, that I needed to do better. You said why earlier. And so I would think, if you are dealing with anger and you're trying to experience the gift of your singleness, but you have an anger that's connected to your singleness, or anger in your singleness because you're still single, then you want to trust through the process that this is going to get better, that this is the way I feel, but I won't be here always. This is a part of me getting to where I am going. This is a part of me getting to my next level, getting to where I ultimately want to be, and working through it, because we don't want to stay there forever.
Yeah, and I think the important thing, and I would call them rules of engagement, when someone is in this process, whether you're the person in the process or your loved one or a friend is in the process, is the process looks different for everybody else.
Mm.
It's contextual, it's individualized. So yeah, you might have gotten over it in a month, but it might take someone else a couple of months or maybe even a year.
Absolutely.
Don't one of the things I put on my LinkedIn a month or so ago is that I'm not going to be bullied by other people's version of
Yeah.
timeline of success for me. Like my timeline is my timeline. I'm
Yeah.
going to own that.
Yeah.
So it may take me a little bit longer or a little bit shorter, but I'm not going to subject you to my timeline
Yeah.
because we're two different people,
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we do that, like, and we see it a lot with grief.
Yeah.
Like, you still grieving? Well, I didn't know there was a clock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like maybe it's
Absolutely.
taking me a little bit longer to process, and or I'm just not getting to where I can sit in it. Don't rush me through this process, because that's the other thing.
Yeah.
You don't want to rush through the process.
Yeah.
No, no,
Because
no.
we can probably think about 5 examples right now. What happens when you rush through the
Right. I
process?
mean, exactly. I mean, one most beautiful process is the process of a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. I mean, I mean, and no, any process that's missed, it's
Yeah,
gonna
part of
keep
that
the
process.
butterfly, the final product, from flying. I mean, if you try to help that butterfly out of the cocoon,
Are you gonna mess them
it's
up?
the wings is not gonna be strong enough
That's
for
right.
the butterfly to fly, to actually, catch its wings and fly. That butterfly have to use those wings and push itself out. So I mean, even like what you were saying earlier, I think the butterfly scenario works great even with that. when you're in the process, if you have a minute to just staring there for a minute, it's okay. Maybe that's your cocoon season. Maybe that's the season you're in the cocoon, but eventually, you know, breaking yourself out of it and breaking yourself out of the situation. So I think
Yeah.
that's a really
And
great
let me
thing.
tell you something, a caterpillar attracts different people. A butterfly attracts different things. So
Mm.
knowing if you're single, knowing what season you're in is so
All right.
important.
All
Yeah.
And
right.
it could be a hint to where you're trying to be seen too early. Like you're a caterpillar, but you're trying to attract people who like butterflies, but you're still in the caterpillar stage. Could it be that it's not your season yet, or you're in a cocoon and it's not time for you to be seen, but you keep trying to be seen,
Wow.
and
Wow.
that's the root of your anger. Like you mad because you're not being seen. Go ahead.
Wow. And that's the thing, because here it is. You're a caterpillar in one season, and the caterpillar is not able to fly.
Oh,
And here you are in the process of becoming the butterfly, and you get caught up with a caterpillar. So it's like, wait, and take take your time, and unwrap the gift of singleness, because if you go too soon, you will be potential butterfly married to a caterpillar.
that's it. That's it. And the old people used to say, it's a song, you understand it better by and by.
Yes.
You will,
Yes.
because right now it seems uncomfortable. Right now you may be sitting in anger, but if you go through the process, then one of the things that I've really come from to understand with my relationship with God is that I had to acknowledge that sometimes when I'm angry with Him, what I'm really saying is, God, I don't trust you, or
Mm.
God, your knowledge is not enough. Because if I truly believe that He knows everything,
Yeah.
I submitted my life to Him, then why I'm upset? And this is real life for me, because I had a blueprint for my life. And, I was going to go to college. I was going to get a degree. I was going to find a college sweetheart. My college sweetheart, we're going to get married and have
Come
2.5
on. Come on.
kids and a dog, named Scruffy.
Oh, scruffy.
Old Scruffy. But years later, and I've been on this earth for some decades, we're not going to say how many, but and my life doesn't look like that. That
Come
was
on.
not
Help
the
us.
plan
Help us.
that God had for my life. So I had a choice, can I stay bitter in that because the blueprint in my mind doesn't match the reality of my
Oh,
life?
wow.
Or can I trust the reality of my life that God has me on? Now that's the thing. God has me on this reality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and He knows what's best. So one day I'm going to look around and be like, well, thank you, God, for the
Well,
wait.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's how you did that. That's what this
Yes.
picture was supposed to look. When you were talking, I was like, wow, because I think that is the key, or that is the reason a lot of times why we are angry with where we are in life. And I'm saying that we're talking to the singles tonight, but whether a person
That's
is
an
married or
investment.
exactly
Yeah.
married, single, dating, or whatever, engaged, you can find yourself in that feeling, because what you're actually saying is, this is not what I planned.
That's it.
So because this is not what I planned, it's not looking like I want it to look, then, wait a minute, God, you not, or you're not on course with what I want. So therefore this can't be right. And sometimes that's where, because anger comes from somewhere. And sometimes it is from, we talked about that a little bit, toxic relationships or heartbreak or whatever. And sometimes it's not all of that. It's just that my life is not looking like I wanted it to look. My life is not going by the blueprint that I had laid out, because, from the time, especially for women, I believe from the time we're little girls, we're being inundated with an idea of what our lives are supposed to look like, how our lives are supposed to go. The whole, either you're going to go to college, fall in love, get married, or either you marry a high school sweetheart and he was the basketball superstar and everything just grand from there. It's always a blueprint, and that blueprint starts in our heads from the time that we're little girls. He that speak to the men, because I'm not a man, but from the time we're little girls, that blueprint is there. So whenever anything anything in your life happens contrary to that blueprint, it can be disappointing. It could be hurtful. So it doesn't always be, it's not always that someone has done something to you. It's just that your life is not lining up with the blueprint. But as Jamila said, when we trust the process, this is the path that was meant for me. This is the purpose for my life. I may have thought that, by the time I was this age, I would be here, here, and there.
Oh, what's the word you keep saying? It's the I disease. That's it.
Exactly,
It's I.
exactly. And
It's
that's the thing.
I.
And that is always for us, for those that are believers in Christ, that's always in direct opposition
That's
of
it.
God. And that's where we find ourselves sometimes when we are in that anger. So we're speaking to that part of someone that's in that stage of anger, that you're angry because it doesn't look like what I want it to look like. Trust the process.
That's it.
Trust wherever he leads you, wherever he has your path going, is going to lead to the purpose that he has for your life. And I promise you, it's going to be better than anything you ever imagined for your life. It's going to take you whatever time he's designed for you to get there, or whatever time it takes for you to get to where he needs you to be, so that you don't mess it up once he gets you there. Because we can mess things up, and he knows that. Just like a parent to a child, you don't give your child something before they can handle it. You don't put your child in a situation that they're not mature enough to deal with. So sometimes that's what's happening for us. So we're on this path where God has us, because he's preparing us for where we're going. Or maybe it's just that the blueprint he has for your life is completely different than the one you had. Either way, you still can trust the process, and I promise you, it's still going to be better than anything you imagine. We want to thank you for joining us today on the Marriage Coach Podcast. If you found this information helpful, we would like to invite you to subscribe and click the notification button so that you will be notified when we upload a video each and every week. And give us a big thumbs up if you found this information helpful. If you're listening on iTunes, we want to invite you to rate the podcast and leave a review. That helps us get the word out. We also want to invite you to head on over to our leadership podcast, Lead to Greatness, on iTunes and YouTube.
So we want to thank you so much for joining us today on the Marriage Coach Podcast. Looking forward to hanging out with you again on next week as we continue to help you take your relationship from surviving to thriving. Bye. See you next week.